It's time for the Northwoods Cooking Show. Starring Uncle Roy and Miss Callie, the troublemaking dog.
Hello, and top of the morning to ya. It's the Northwoods Cooking Show. And as you can tell, it's our St. Patrick's Day special edition. Ho-ho! And I'm your chef, Uncle Roy, with my lovely assistant, the one and only, my little leprechaun, Miss Callie. Oh, here she comes. Oh, look at her. Come here, come here, come here. Oh, it's so pretty. Oh, here, get your blingle going here. Yeah, you gotta get your blingle going. Oh, yeah, look at her little blingle going. Oh, yeah, she's just pretty. Oh. And then she has a little headband on. So kiss me on my Irish. Yeah, Callie and I got Irish Meat Pastie. Biscuits. These video games. Top of the morning, day with Callie and I. And so we're going to be making some traditional Irish dishes. Last year we did the corned beef and cabbage, and an Irish tea cake, and what was the other one, Callie Alley's? Oh, Irish soda bread. And that turned out really, really nice. And this year we're going to be doing some more dishes. We're going to be making an Irish meat pasty pie, which is like a beef pot pie. It's very similar. And for this, of course, then we're going to be having to make the pie crust. And this is just my regular traditional pie crust. I'm going to take my glasses off. I can't see through these. And we're going to take and make regular traditional pie crust. And I make mine in the food processor, which is so much easier, and it comes out really nice and flaky. And of course, we're going to be needing our flour. So we need 2 1/4 cups of flour. And always make sure to level these off, because even the little slight amount of flour, it will make your products tougher and harder. And we want a nice flaky crust. We don't want to have a hard crust. So make sure you level these measurements off exactly. So we need 2 1/4 cup of flour. It's 2 1/4. And in this, we're also going to be needing a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And of course, I always use the kosher salt. Everybody knows that by now, unless you're new and don't know it, then it's worth repeating. Because the kosher salt is lighter, or less sodium, and it makes everything in baking so much lighter and fluffy. Callie, what are you going downstairs for, my little leprechaun? Oh, gotta guard her bowl. And we'll just take and buzz this up for a little bit. Just to mix that in well together. And then we need a 1/2 cup of butter. And this you want to make sure is very, very cold. You don't want to soften this up. You want to leave this hard. Because this is what's going to make the crust flaky, is the hard butter. If it turns soft, then your crust is going to spread out when baking, and it's not going to maintain its shape. So you want to chop this up into like tablespoon sizes, because we're going to process this all together. And with this, we also need a 1/4 cup of shortening. Now that you can take and just stick it in your freezer for about 15 minutes, and that'll harden up your shortening. And now we just take and mix this all together. And just pulse this, or mix this up, pulse it until we have it the consistency of a coarse cornmeal. And now to this, we're going to be adding anywhere from 4 to 6 tablespoons of ice water. And what you do is just put a couple ice cubes in your glass of water, and then pour your water off of that. That would be ice water. You want it really cold is what the idea is, because that's going to congeal your shortening and butter in with your flour, so it'll make a nice ball of a dough. So now we just add this. We add this slowly until the ball forms. And when the ball forms, stop. You don't want to over-mix that either. The heat from the food processor will take and melt that butter and shortening. So we don't want to take and over-mix that either. And now we'll just take and put this together in a ball. And another thing too is try not to overwork this crust. The less handling the better, because the more you handle it, the more it's going to get tougher on you. You're going to be activating that flour, the gluten in the flour, and we don't want to do that because that'll toughen up your crust. So, this is our pie crust dough. This goes into the refrigerator and let it chill, or you can put it in the freezer for about 15 more minutes in the freezer. In the refrigerator, about an hour. You want to get this nice and set and cold. Then we just take the edge of the pie crust dough, pull it up along the rolling pin, roll right back, put our pie pan underneath. There we go. Now when you press this pie crust into your pan, lift the edges up and push and press it in. If you just go ahead and start pressing it in, you're going to stretch it out so that when you bake it, it shrinks up on you, and then you get a mess of all your gooey inside come gooing out and everything else. So you want to lift that up and just slide that in easier. Then press that in. We'll do our filling. Now our filling is just, you can use chuck roast if you want, cut into small dice cubes and fry that up. Or you can use ground beef, which is what I use. And you just want to layer this in the bottom of your pie crust. And you can put in as much or as little as you want. That's all preference up to you. You want like approximately about a pound of ground beef, a pound of meat. Because you only want to do a small layer like that, because then next we put in potatoes, and you want to slice up with slices thin, and we want to put in just a layer, but you probably slice up like about 1 or 2 medium to large potatoes. That's one thing about the Irish is they got potatoes in just about everything, or they do a lot of things with potatoes. That's where the potatoes came from, you know, or from Ireland. They brought them over here to America to grow. And then we're going to take and just put on some rings of onions. You don't have to go heavy on them, you know, or you could if you wanted to, but just enough to cover up there, just slightly. And then we put in, about a teaspoon or so of A1 sauce or steak sauce, whatever you happen to have. It's going to be about 1 to 2 tablespoons of steak sauce all together. So when you do these layers, just kind of think about that as you're spreading it around. And then we'll take and do another layer of meat. Pack that down in there. And just do this again with potatoes and onions. I like the taste of bacon. And when I get done with it, I usually microwave it with paper towels to absorb all that grease. And then when I take it out, then I even pat it dry even more so. Or even baking it in the oven, your bacon. If you have like a broiler, that works great. And then your bacon stays crispy and all the fat drips off into the pan below. That's the best way to make your bacon, is to broil it. So that the grease, it doesn't sit in the grease. The grease just, drips underneath into the other pan. And then with your onions too, it's probably like about one large onion, a couple small ones, and just lay your rings all over. We want to do like about 2 or 3 layers until we get done with all our ingredients. The more you layer, the more flavors you're going to get mixed together. Pack that in there. And finish it off again with a little bit of the steak sauce. Just drizzling this on very lightly. And taking into consideration all 3 layers, it's about a table to 2 tablespoons. You don't want to overdo it. We don't need all that salt. Like I said before in my earlier episodes, I don't like to cook with salt if I don't have to. And when I do, I use the kosher. Because there's so much sodium in everything that you get these days. So now we just take and roll out our final piece of pie crust. That's one thing too, when rolling out your pie crust, you want to be careful. Because you want to try, if you can, to get this done perfect the very first time. Because the more you roll your dough out, the tougher it's going to get. And then we just do the same thing. Roll up the pie crust with the rolling pin. Lay this on top. And then we just go around and seal the edges. And we'll take and cut out some of this extra dough. Heat it over too far. And then we just go around and crimp it. Stick your finger out and pinch. And then any excess dough, you can just take a knife and cut around. I don't have too much hanging over. I can just use my fingers and just rub. And then don't forget to cut your slits. Because you gotta have these slits for the steam to escape. Otherwise, you're gonna have a hollow shell. That's how you get those air pockets. When you bake an apple pie, you get the big cave underneath it. And then we'll just put this on a baking sheet. And this goes into the oven for approximately 1 hour and 10 to 15 minutes, or until it's nice and lightly brown. And we'll just stick this right into the oven and we'll test it. Check it out later and see what it looks like. And that's going into a 350-degree oven. Oh, there's a little leprechaun sneaking up, peeking up around the corner, waiting to sample. Well, now we're going to go on to the dessert cake, which is going to be a pistachio bundt cake. Now this is so simple to make. Oh my. Anybody can do this one. That's why I'm using a cake mix. Now I got recipes for making wonderful moist cakes, but I want to show you something that's quick, simple, and easy to make. So you can do this at home too for your family. All you need is 1 box of cake mix. I'm using a yellow. Oh, I'm losing my assistant. I better give her a treat. Callie, you ain't nothing but a hound dog. Oh, get over it, my little leprechaun. Come here. Oh, come here. Tweet, tweet. Sit pretty. Sit pretty. Oh, get the rings down. Get the rings going. There you go. Oh, sit pretty. Sit. Sit, sit. Sit. Sit pretty. Oh, yeah, happy sit daddy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Kiss me on my wish. Yeah. All we need is 1 box of the yellow cake mix. We need 2 of the small boxes, or 1 large, of the pistachio instant pudding. Now, I'm putting in the sugar-free only because I can eat more. That's my logic behind it. So I got, you know, I'm diabetic, so that's why I'm just putting the sugar-free one, but you just put in the regular pistachio pudding is fine. But we need 2 boxes of that. And this is what's going to give it, you know, the green color. You could add more green if you wanted to make it dark green. I've done that before too. And then we need 1 cup of water and 3/4 cup of vegetable oil. Now this is what makes your cakes moist. I've said this before too. If you can find a cake mix that calls for oil, get it. It's going to be really moist. Or if you're making a cake totally from scratch, look for a recipe that calls for oil in it rather than butter or shortening, because the oil makes it really super moist. And then we just need 4 eggs. And remember too, now when you're cracking your eggs, I do mine on the countertop, because when you crack them on the edge of your bowl, you end up with shells in your mix. Then we just take and mix this up until moist. Start out at low for about 30 seconds. You don't want to, I know. And then we'll turn this up to a medium to medium-high speed and let that go for 3 to 4 minutes until light and fluffy. And you really should time this, because you want it light and fluffy. You want to totally incorporate it on that higher speed. And that's what's going to make your cake rise really light and fluffy. If you underbeat it, then it's going to get a little flat on you. So usually it's best to time it for about 3 to 4 minutes. And then we'll come back when that's all mixed up. And then that's all nice and fluffy there. We take our bundt pan, spray it, and make sure you get the center. A lot of people forget to get the inner part. Then you got a sticky mess. I've done that many times. And then we just pour this into our pan. And just smooth that around. Get in the corners, the edges of the print. And I always have to tap them down to spread out evenly. And then put this in the oven for about 45 minutes in a bundt cake. And this should probably be done about the same time that our Irish meat pastie. I want to pronounce it right. I always get mixed up with pronouncing pasty the wrong way. You know what I mean. Okay, next we're going to be, while you're baking, we're going to be making the cream cabbage. Now, you can take and use green cabbage for St. Patty's Day, or you can use the red cabbage. It depends on what you want to do. I kind of lean towards the red just so that we have some more color on the plate. So I'm going to do the green because it's St. Patty's Day. And what we need is 4 strips of bacon in the bottom of our kettle. In a crock pot or Dutch oven, or you can use a large, wide, deep frying pan too. It works good. And what we're going to do is take and cook this up until these are nice and crisp and brown. So for about 10 minutes. And while that's cooking, we're going to take and cut up our cabbage. Now for your cabbage, you want to get 1 large head. Not extremely huge. Oh, I remember growing up as kids. Oh my God. Out in the country of Wisconsin, we had neighbors, farmers, they used to grow cabbages. My Lord, I remember some of those cabbages were about this big around. They were huge, so you don't want to have that. We used to take and make homemade sauerkraut all the time growing up as kids. And some of those big, huge heads, people would buy those like crazy. Now take off the outer leaves, cut off that core part, the end, and then we're just going to decor it That means just cutting out the center core. Just a triangular piece like that, and that takes it right out. And then we're going to cut this really thin, as thin as you can get it. If you want to put this in a food processor and get it really fine, that's good too. I just can't find the attachment to my food processor. So I gotta do it the old-fashioned way, just cut this up real quick. Now always remember to give that bacon a stir. Don't want it to start sticking and burning. And then we'll do the same to the other head. And then we'll get back to our recipe once the bacon is all brown. And when it does get done brown, just put it on a paper towel to stay crisp. You always want that flavor of the bacon. And when you eat like this all the time, then of course it's going to raise your cholesterol. But if you don't and your cholesterol is low, this is just fine. If not, I would take and drain off the grease and then just put the butter in by itself. And along with that, you need 1 tablespoon of flour, and a teaspoon of salt, and then we put in our cabbage. And then we just toss this until it's all well coated. And this will disintegrate, I don't want to say that, but it'll cook down and it just gets smaller and smaller. And we just cook this down until it's nice and tender. And we turn that heat down a little bit to like a medium. I don't want to burn this. And this will take about 15 minutes to cook down. Oh, Miss Callie always. And now our cabbage is nice and tender. And to this we're going to be adding 1/2 cup of sour cream. And our bacon. And I just took the bacon and crumbled that up. And that goes right into the pot. And this is our cream cabbage. Ooh, cabbage looks good. Really good. Really good. And that we can turn off and just keep warm. Until everything gets done all at the same time. Whoa. And this is our St. Patrick's Day meal. We have the Irish Meat Pastie with ground beef, onions, potatoes in that. There's a nice crust on top of the pie. And then this is the cream cabbage. That turned out just wonderfully good. And you can see our little green pistachio bundt cake. So from Miss Callie and myself, we'd like to say Happy St. Patty's Day! Boy, wasn't that fun, Callie, eh? Oh, we made lots of treats and they were really good. I get the goggles back on. This is our question and answer period on the Northwoods Cooking Show. If you have any questions for Callie or I on baking or canning, cooking, gardening, please feel free to write us at the Northwoods Cooking Show at yahoo.com, and we'll try to get back to your answers as soon as possible. And we might even take and put it in the jar so Callie can get her treat. And also, remember that we're also on YouTube and Facebook. So just go into the search categories, enter the Northwoods Cooking Show, and we'll pop it up. And we have many, many episodes from our previous year's shows uploaded on both YouTube and Facebook. So Callie, let's see who wrote us this week. Look at you, Queen Sweet. Hey, come here. Queen Sweet to St. Patty's Day. Oh, wait, turn on your wings. Turn on your wings, turn on your wings. Got his wings on. Yeah. Oh. Wings, yeah. can't see my glasses. Dear Uncle Roy, Miss Callie, how do you make ribs in a crock pot? Signed, Jason of Golden Valley, Minnesota. Thanks, Jason. Let's see what these things are. Making ribs in a crock pot is very easy. A lot of people think it's hard, but it's not. All you have to do is take your crock pot, of course, and spray it, and just lay your ribs right in there. The best way is, if you have a long rack of ribs, is to roll them up, you know, like a sleeping bag. Make sure they come out, of course. Just roll them up and stick them right in. That usually they can fit right in just perfectly. And then just smother your barbecue sauce over the entire top. Make sure you put in about an inch of water on the bottom, just so that moisture can get in there and fill up the ribs. And then put the crock pot cover on top. And then you want to put that on, this is the tricky part. High is going to go from about 6 hours. And low is going to be about 8 to 10 hours. But another thing that I like to do too is take my ribs and put them in my pressure cooker. And I'll cook them for 20 minutes in a pressure cooker. Turn off the heat. You know, don't open that lid yet. You know, you want all that steam to escape naturally. So it takes a half hour to cool down. Then open it up. Make sure you jiggle the top so that there's no steam in it. And then when you open it up, you got your ribs. That helps to make them more tender. Then you can stick them in your crock pot. And then I cover them with barbecue sauce. And then I can put them on low, and they'll be done by the time I get back from work. So that would be like about 8 hours, or 6 hours, you know, 6 to 8 hours depending on your shift, you know. But that 20 minutes in the pressure cooker really helps to tenderize them. And when you take them out, they'll slip right off the bowl. They are so tender. So I hope that answers your question, Jason. And for you at home, if you have any questions for Callie or I of cooking or baking, etc., feel free to write us at the Northwoods Cooking Show at yahoo.com. Let's say goodbye, Callie. She's a mind there. So for Callie and I, we like to say, eat healthy, be safe, and spread the sunshine. Say goodbye, Callie. Oh, bye-bye. Happy St. Patty's Day.
Sunshine.